Welcome to the December 10th, 2020 board meeting. My name is Greg Lippy, president of the board. As we get started today, I remind everyone that the board is a consumer protection agency, and as provided in pharmacy law, protection of the public is the highest priority of the board. Further, I advise all individuals observing or participating in the meeting that the meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Governor Gavin Newsom's Executive Order N-2920. Participants watching the webcast will only be able to observe the meeting. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on the board's website. All public phone lines are currently on mute. I will announce when we are accepting public comment on the various issues, and the moderator will open the lines as appropriate. I asked the moderator to allot 2 minutes to each individual providing comments. This approach is necessary to facilitate the meeting and ensure the board has the opportunity to complete its necessary business. Before we get started, the moderator will provide general instructions. So, moderator, please go ahead.
Good morning. This is just a reminder for individuals on today's panel that if you are not speaking, to please ensure that your microphone is muted. When you do go to speak, please make sure you unmute your microphone and pause momentarily, as there may be a lag when transitioning from a muted to an unmuted microphone. During time for public comment, I will be taking all comments in the order they are received. Lastly, please ensure that when you go to speak, you address who is speaking. So state who you are so the members of the public will be able to easily identify who it is making comment. With that, I turn it back over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. As indicated on the agenda, the board will convene in closed session after deliberating on all the open session items except adjournment. Due to technological limitations, adjournment will not be broadcast. Adjournment will immediately follow closed session, and there will be no other items of business discussed. I will now take a roll call to establish a quorum. I'll begin with Debbie Veal. Please remember to unmute your lines. Debbie, are you here?
Here.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
Here.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Here.
Thank you. Jig Patel.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, thank you. Jason Weiss. Jason?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, thank you. Is Albert Wong with us now?
Good morning, I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you, Albert.
Hi.
Okay, Sung Oh.
I'm here.
Thank you. Okay, great. Okay, with a quorum being established, the board will now entertain any public comments. Before we do, though, I will mention that within the last 24 hours, we received comments from 2 organizations. Those comments have been distributed to all board members, and they will appear on our website. Now, to facilitate this portion of the meeting, as I previously announced, staff will open the phone lines for individuals to provide public comment. You are not required to identify yourself, but you may do so. As we open the lines, I remind everyone that the board cannot take action on these items except to decide whether to place an item on a future agenda. Members, following review of the public comments for this agenda item, I will ask if any of you would like to place an item on a future agenda. Okay, it's now time for the public comments. Moderator, please open the lines.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon located in the lower right portion of your screen. In just a moment, I will be displaying steps for you to find and locate to submit a public comment. I will take all requests for public comment in the order they are received. Just to restate what the board president stated, you will be provided 2 minutes for your public comment. With that, our first public comment comes from an individual identified as Ryan Brooks. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Ryan is a board member.
I'm a board member. I'm trying to get you guys to elevate me to a panelist.
Moderator, did you hear that?
I did. I have promoted him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our first then public comment comes from Gibran Maciel. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Hello, my name is Gibran Maciel. I am with Nutrisure, a pharmacy with locations in Elk Grove, California, as well as Kentucky. We specialize in providing high-quality compounded nutritional support medications to our family of long-term stable consumers. I'm participating in the public comment today to bring attention to the federal MOU on compounding that asks for state partnership in tracking compounded medications across state lines. In states that choose to participate in the MOU process, pharmacies that are determined to ship more than 50% of their compounded medications across state lines will simply be required to report certain information to their board of pharmacy in order to help the FDA track the distribution of compounded medications across state lines. However, in states that decline to participate in the MOU process, pharmacies will be limited to sending out no more than 5% of their total medications across state lines. This will be very difficult for us in particular since we specialize in compounding and our particular practice is total parenteral nutrition. There's really only a handful of pharmacies in the country that do this. Because of the specialized nature, we really need to ship across state lines. So this would adversely affect our ability to provide nutritional support to our family of consumers, some of which have been with us for nearly 30 years. Not to mention it'd be incredibly stressful for the consumers to have to find a new pharmacy provider after they've been with us for, again, some of them have been with us for 30 years. The FDA imposed a deadline of October 2021 for the various states' Board of Pharmacy to participate in the MOU process or to impose a 5% cap on compounded medications. We need clarity on this issue as soon as possible in order to best understand how this new regulatory landscape will affect our ability to operate in California. I urge you to agendize this issue for a fuller discussion as soon as possible. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we have no additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please. Okay, members, having received public comment, I will now take a roll call to ask if any of you would like to place an item on the agenda for on a future agenda. So I will begin with Sung Oh. Sung?
I'm good. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Sung. Okay, Albert? Albert Wong, do you want to unmute?
Comment.
Thank you, Albert. Jason Weiss?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you, Jason. Jig Patel?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Jig. Cheryl Butler?
Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Serpa?
I do have a question before making a suggestion. I know that we have discussed the FDA's MOU in full board meetings in the past, and we're watching what's happening at the federal level. Is this being discussed in any of the committees as to whether the board is going to accept the MOU, or what are the next steps at the board regarding this?
Ann, can you
President
respond?
Lippy?
Yes.
This is Ann. I
Yes.
believe that we have previously received public comment for items not on the agenda, and I believe the board has referred this matter to the Enforcement Committee for discussion. The Enforcement Committee does meet in January.
Thank you.
Okay. Maria, did you have something else too?
No, I just wanted to assure that
Okay.
the MOU is going to be discussed. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Debbie Veal?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Then we move on to agenda item 3, discussion and consideration
And
of.
Mr. President, this is Ryan Brooks. Mr. President, this is Ryan Brooks. I don't
Yes,
have anything
Ryan.
here.
I'm sorry. You know, unfortunately, you weren't on the list, so I'm sorry that I overlooked you. Next. Members, the next item on the agenda is discussion and consideration of the draft responses prepared by staff for our consideration. As you may recall, as part of the sunset process, the board has 30 days following its oversight hearing to provide written responses to the issues raised in the Oversight Committee's background paper. As we begin our discussion, let's first review some of the prior actions taken by the board that related to the issues presented in the paper. Will the moderator please display the brief history of the board actions related to the issues? Okay. Members, as you review this information, you will note that the board has previously considered several of these items. Where the board has approved statutory language, the information provides the date of such approval. You all note that several of the items are identified as new policy issues for the board. Members, as we begin our discussion, I will ask each of you for your comments regarding the draft responses. Following our discussion, if there appears to be agreement, I will request a motion. Following a motion, I will open the discussion to public comment. Do you have any questions before we proceed? I'm going to go through a roll call quickly to see if you have questions. Debbie Veal?
Hi, Greg. I do not have any questions. I just want to make sure the board members understand that at the last board meeting, we had a sunset review that I went over with the executive officer, and this is something different. So I fine-tuned our sunset review that went to the legislature with the executive officer. That has been submitted. This is something on top of that. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Thank you, Debbie. Maria, did you wish to say anything?
No questions or comments.
Thank you. Cheryl, do you wish to say anything?
No, but thank you,
Okay.
Debbie, for that explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jig Patel?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Weiss?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Albert Wong?
No question, thank you.
Ryan Brooks? Thank you, Albert.
No questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, Sung Oh?
Just one question for Ann and Greg. Are we gonna just submit this to the legislators, or are you guys gonna testify again?
No, we've already testified, so this will be submitted.
Okay. No other questions.
Thank you. Okay. I'll start by sharing that I believe the draft responses are appropriate. I agree with the policy recommendations offered by staff. Further, I agree that the statutory language provided by staff relating to the outsourcing issue is appropriate and consistent with our consumer protection mandate. I will begin with Vice President Veal. Please provide your comments on the draft responses. Debbie?
Are we going through each one, or are you going to just kind of say as a bucket?
I'm going to ask each person to provide their comments entirely. I'm not going to go through each one.
Okay. I'm fine with the draft as presented.
Thank you. Next will be our treasurer, Maria Serpa. Please provide your comment.
President Lippy, give me just a moment because I thought we were going to go through each one, so I just need to run through my notes real quick.
Okay.
I did want to discuss, we could start with issue number 5.
Okay.
And just some comments maybe to educate the public and our newest board members as to the background and history. There's a little bit of background in here, but background and history regarding having a board attorney and how the board has been desirous of having their own separate attorney and has the authorization to obtain such. But there's been difficulty in getting that position posted or filled, or I'm not sure what the right term is. So I'm not sure if that's something that Eileen would speak to or if it would be Anne.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with Anne?
Good morning. So several years ago, the proposal, there was a statutory proposal that provided the board with the authority to hire its own counsel. It is a may in the law. As the board may recall, or members may recall, the board did request that staff initiate that recruitment, but there is a little bit of a differing of opinion with respect to whether or not the board should hire its own attorney or continue to use the services of the DCA solely. I think that the medical board does have a model that the medical board has its own independent counsel and then also leverages the services of the DCA legal unit as well. I do believe that this issue specifically, the administration, I believe, feels strongly about its position. And so I would encourage the board to, take an approach of working collaboratively with the legislature and the administration, recognizing that any changes in the statute would ultimately need to be approved by the governor through signature or action on legislation. And then perhaps, encourage additional meetings with the administration, with DCA to see if there's perhaps a middle ground or if they are have changed their position and would allow the board now to hire its own counsel.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, Maria, do you have comments on additional issues? Or do you want me to
Just a follow up on that issue. Is that something that we need to add to a future agenda to create some action around it? I mean, I know that's not the appropriate time right now because we're talking about the response to the Sunset Report, but that topic I have for future discussion. I don't know what the process is for that.
Okay, well,
I think that,
go ahead, Anne.
sorry. So I would say that I would probably encourage the board to kind of, keep it a little bit general and maybe hearing board comments on this if it's the desire for the board to, explore this further, to maybe request or, through your comments today, convey your desire for the executive officer and perhaps the board president to try to continue its dialogue with the administration on this issue.
Hey, Maria, this is Ryan Brooks. I was very vocal about this particular issue when we were having the discussions. I did want to have our own dedicated attorney. And the reason behind that was we wanted consistency and someone long-term that we had the ability to, I don't like to say the word control. The challenge with having the Attorney General's office, oversee it is, people get moved around, and for good reason also. And I liked having the consistency of an individual member. So maybe during those negotiations or conversations, if we can even get an MOU with the Attorney General's office that their pick is going to be a long-term 5-year, 8-year pick, unless they choose to leave, I'd be okay with that. So if you're discussing that, you should keep that in the back of your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Back to Maria. Did you have comments on the other items?
On this one, continuing this one, the only reason I brought this up is because it was a very interesting discussion in the past, and it seems to have fallen from our radar. I'm glad to see that it's in the Sunset Review report. But other than that, I have no specific comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, Cheryl Butler, do you have comments regarding any of the issues? Cheryl, are you unmuted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to say I really was impressed with what I saw, and I was particularly impressed with issue 13, the fact that the board is actually looking at working conditions, and so again, I'm just happy with what I was able to in reading this sunset review that the staff put together, that you guys put together. I'm really impressed with it. I like it.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, Ryan Brooks, do you have comments on the issues?
No other issues. Just one last comment.
Yes.
We've been very fortunate. We had some just great attorneys working for the Board of Pharmacy, and do know that the California Attorney General has the ability to make changes as he or she feels fit. And just keep in mind that over the last 4 years, we'll have 3 new Attorney Generals and 3 different personalities who could make 3 different and new decisions. And so if we can find a way to keep our attorneys long-term for consistency purposes, it would be great.
Great, thank you. That was it? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, Jig Patel?
I have nothing to add. I'm happy with the report that was submitted by the staff.
Thank you, Jig. Jason Weiss?
No comments on this, President Lippy, other than to say that due to my employment with the legislature, I will abstain from this vote when it comes time to vote. Thank you.
Understood. Okay, Albert Wong.
Yeah, I agree with Ryan's comment about the attorney. We should have our own attorney. Number 2, on the enforcement issue, item number 13, I would like to see that on any disciplinary action on the pharmacy's activity, I think the individual that involved, pharmacist or technician, and the PIC should be involved. That involved should be will be cited, but not the CEO of the corporation or the owner of the corporation while they are not actively participate. So I would like to see something like that change in the future. That's it.
Thank you, Albert. That's it? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Sung Oh.
Hi, Greg. Just the one comment and about issue number 17 about medication errors. The last sentence says, it appears appropriate to conduct a survey on working conditions to ascertain if conditions in California may be a contributing factor. Now that the pharmacists and all pharmacy technicians are, they're required to sign up for an email alert. I'm not sure the technicality, but there are a lot of platforms such as SurveyMonkey and Google Docs. It really is easy to conduct a survey, and I really think this is going to be very useful for us to understand how all the licensees in our state feels about their working conditions. And I think we need to have a great idea, and I really hope that we can do this very fast and soon, so that we have a good idea of how licensees actually feel about it, because we don't have a good, idea and general sample of what they actually go through everyday life. So I really hope that we can get this going as soon as possible.
Very
That's
good.
it.
Thank you. Do you have additional items?
I'm good. No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Has Shirley Kim joined us?
Yes, I'm on. No
Hi.
comments.
No
Hello.
comments. Thank you, Shirley. Okay, well, looks like we've gone through all those comments.
Hey,
So,
Greg, can I add
yes,
one more comment, please?
sure.
Yeah, I would like to see the board in the future emphasize more prevention, educational, instead of punishment. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Okay, now it is time for public comment. So, moderator, would you please open the lines?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon located in the lower right portion of your screen and type "I would like to make a public comment." You will be provided 2 minutes to make your public comment and given a 10-second warning. Once your time has been reached, your microphone will once again be muted. With that, our first public comment comes from an individual identified as Daniel Martinez. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Good morning, board members, board president, the rest of the board members. Danny Martinez with the California Pharmacists Association. I guess we're under the assumption that we were going to be discussing the issues separately. We do have comments on several of the issues of the draft responses that the board has made.
That's fine. You won't be limited to 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So I'll go through these as quickly as I can. On issue number 2, we do believe and support that it's in the public's best interest to have a seat designated on the board for the compounding pharmacist. As you know, compounding is a very unique and highly technical field that is also continuously evolving. For patients with unique health needs that cannot be met by manufactured medications, compounding pharmacists provide an invaluable service, and it is imperative that this body have a pharmacist who understands and practices the complexities of the specialized field of pharmacy. On issue 3, we had a quick question on whether, if the board is moving towards fully going teleconference, or if you guys are more going after a hybrid model where some board members could teleconference and some of them could be in person. We would support the latter and emphasize the importance of allowing in-person testimony when this pandemic is over. On issue number 7, we recognize that this conversation will continue on advanced pharmacy technicians, and we look forward to the conversation, just reminding the board that we do support appropriate training and certification for technicians. On issue number 10, we do support the board's statutory proposal to allow for the 2 criteria to be completed for APP licensure. On issue 11, regarding the CPJE, we are a bit disheartened that the board's response fails to take into account any sort of introspective views about what the board can or should do differently to prevent this kind of incident from happening again. While we understand that in the response that the board is contracting with the Office of Professions Examination Services, that is helpful, but the fact remains that the board's actions last year decimated over 300 graduate job opportunities in one fell swoop without any sort of explanation or insight as to why such a broad approach was necessary. These individuals were denied their due process, which is afforded to any individual accused of wrongdoing. CPHA is further disheartened that the comments that we sent to the board on a possible compromise on how this could have been better handled went ignored and unanswered. Lastly, we believe that it is worth the board's time to look into implementing the MPJE, seeing as how we understand that the board currently provides certain questions to NABP specific to California pharmacy law, which are then integrated into the MPJE. It would also be worth the board's time to compare the cost of administering the CPJE through contracting with Pearson and PSI versus what it would cost to just move over to the MPJE. On issue number 13, CPHA would support the board's pursuit of the increased fine authority of pharmacy law violations for pharmacies, under common corporate ownership, especially in cases where the owner isn't a pharmacist. We do feel that it is important that the board distinguish between the pharmacies that are run under common ownership and our pharmacist-owned pharmacies. In the case of a pharmacist-owned pharmacy, as you well know, the pharmacist's license is at risk as well as that of the pharmacy, where in other cases that may not be the case and may be one of the reasons why these deterrents aren't working. On issue 14, we're appreciative of the fact that the alternative dispute resolution will be presented at the next Enforcement and Compounding Committee. We do look forward to presenting our proposal to the board. On issue 15, under standard of care, CPHA greatly supports the board studying this approach on how to move to a standard of care model for pharmacy. Pharmacists, similar to physicians, dentists, nurses, and other healthcare providers, are designated healthcare providers as described in Business Professions Code 4050 subsection C. As such, CPHA believes it is long past due to treat pharmacists as other healthcare professionals in terms of allowing them to act reasonably under the circumstance of a trained professional, as noted in the Sunset Review report, instead of the current enforcement model, which punishes pharmacists for any perceived violation of the law as written to a T. CPHA would ask the board to study this issue and any recommendations that arise from this study, provide a clear course of action to get this model up and going sooner rather than later. On issue 17, CPHA would agree with the board's need to conduct a survey on the current working conditions. We would respectfully request that relevant stakeholders be able to provide input that would then lead to the development of the survey. On issue 18, regarding patient-specific outsourcing, CPHA understands and appreciates the board's exploration for allowing 503B outsourcing facilities to provide patient-specific prescriptions under certain conditions. However, there are a number of concerns that we have with this proposal that fail to understand the distinction between 503A compounding pharmacies and 503B outsourcing facilities. In the first instance, 503 outsourcing facilities are not pharmacies and as such do not act as pharmacies. They are in essence manufacturers, requiring them to comply with all dispensing provisions of pharmacy that include but are not limited to clinical services, patient consult, and drug therapy review will actually create a disincentive for them to provide patient-specific prescriptions. Secondly, because 503B facilities follow CGMP standards and not USP, there's a monetary disincentive for them to provide patient-specific prescriptions, which will then result in patient access issues. Finally, while other states do allow 503B facilities to provide patient-specific prescriptions, the overwhelming majority of them don't actually do that due to the narrow tailoring of their laws. In many cases, they're only allowed to do the compounding if the drug is in shortage or if it's on a Category 1 list that is separate from 503A. As a result, there's very limited number of APIs that the 503B facilities can compound. And this issue kind of goes back to issue 2 and why we highlight why we support the designation of a compounding pharmacist on the Board of Pharmacy. On issue 19, we support the CPA statutory proposal to modify the authority of a pharmacist to initiate, adjust, or discontinue. Issue 20, we support your statutory proposal to allow non-opioid medication-assisted treatment to provide for patients who are addicted to opioids, and would further ask the board to consider modifying this proposal to include all forms of MAT. As we know, pharmacists are medication safety experts by nature, and this kind of therapy fits perfectly within their education and training. On issue number 25, CPHA would like to get the board's perspective on whether it would support a statutory requirement to collect licensee emails since, as noted, there is no current statutory requirement at this time. CPHA would also like to know the percentage of pharmacists who sign up for the listserv as required by the board. As the Sunset Review indicates, in instances of declared emergencies such as wildfires, it's important to provide time-sensitive information to pharmacies through as many channels as possible. On issue 26, on the technical cleanup, as reading through the technical cleanup, CPHA would respectfully request that you remove the proposal of amending Business of Professions Code 4400 and adding 4127.5 as increasing fees on sterile compounding pharmacies is not an appropriate venue for a technical cleanup bill and thus should be its own proposal that goes through the public vote of the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny.
President Lippy?
Yes.
This is Debbie Veal. Although I appreciate all the comments from Danny, it seemed like a number of them weren't specifically to address at the responses that the board is proposing that the staff put together for us, but possibly, looking in the future at how we might address a number of these items. So I guess kind of what I walked away from with what Danny just went through was appreciate his insight, but I'm not sure that there's anything that he discussed that would cause me to want to change anything in this document.
Right. I agree with you. Thank you.
This is the moderator. Would you like me to continue with public comment?
Yes, please. And also, please, in your comments, do address the purpose of this, which is to determine if we need to change anything in terms of our response, or if you would like us to change anything in terms of our responses, as opposed to what you would like us to do in the future. Thank
Hi,
you.
Greg. Sorry, I have a quick question about issue number 3. Do other
Yes.
boards already have any procedures about remote meetings, or is this apply to all boards and that requires statutory changes?
I'm going to kick that one over to Ann. Ann, can you respond?
Yeah, so the board, as well as other boards, we need to follow the provisions of the Open Meetings Act that really establishes the parameters for meetings. We have been operating since March under an executive order that waived some of the provisions of the Open Meetings Act to facilitate meetings during the pandemic. I will ask Eileen to go into a little bit more of the specifics should you want to drill down a little bit more, but essentially all meetings are conducted consistent with the Bagley-Kane Open Meetings Act.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank
Okay,
you.
let's go on to the next public comment.
Our next public comment comes from Jassy Gruel. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank
Good
you.
morning, Chair and board members. My name is Jazzy Graywall here on behalf of UFCW Western States Council. We would first like to thank the Board of Pharmacy staff for their great work in putting together the board's responses in the Sunset Review document and their excellent leadership on issues 13 and 17, common ownership and medication errors. We agree with the board that the responses in the board's draft do not need to be changed. As a union that represents pharmacists and pharmacy technicians at the retail community pharmacies, we agree with the board's draft response that community pharmacies are chaotic environments where community pharmacists struggle to manage day-to-day activities of taking care of their patients and filling prescriptions. At a hearing the California Senate held a few years ago on staffing at community pharmacies, our pharmacists shared stories of how they are terrified of making medication errors because they are understaffed, which makes it difficult to perform their job safely and puts the public at risk of medication errors. Additionally, we agree that corporate policies impede directly or indirectly with pharmacy operations and the professional judgment of staff pharmacists. The board does not have the adequate tools to enforce against these large multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies. A maximum $5,000 fine is insufficient and has not resulted in the necessary changes in corporate practices to facilitate improved patient care. We agree with the board's recommendation to conduct a workforce study in California on the working conditions at retail community pharmacies and have the board or other entity receive reports of medication errors. We also agree with the board's recommendation to increase the fine authority for common violations identified within pharmacies under common control. UFCW looks forward to working with the board and the legislature on meaningful public protections to tackle these issues in the retail community pharmacies. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Our next public comment comes from Stephen Gray. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephen Gray. I'm a pharmacist attorney. Speaking on behalf of myself, I would like to offer a little background and possibly a need to change the submission. On issue number 10 regarding the advanced practice pharmacist license category, and specifically in attachment C. Attachment C shows the deletion of a reference to 4052.2, and that reference was specifically negotiated in 2013, effective 2014, to at the request of the California Medical Board and the request of the California Medical Association to clarify that pharmacists were not independent diagnosing and prescribing practitioners, that they needed, as with collaborative practice, they needed a specific referral of a specific patient or patients to a pharmacist for them to conduct collaborative drug therapy management as part of a team. And only after that, and a protocol was agreed upon, either written or verbal, that the pharmacist would have the ability to initiate, adjust, and discontinue prescription medication. So I just want to call to the attention of the board, because many of you don't remember or were active during that time, that this was a very, very serious issue, and perhaps that particular deletion needs to be reconsidered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Our next public comment comes.
President Lippy, Mr. Gray, can you clarify exactly how you would want us to reword that?
Sorry for the interruption. This is Anne. That proposal specifically was vetted through the licensing committee and the board. So that is approved statutory language that the board has already done. Should that be helpful?
So, Debbie, or is that where we leave it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I just hope, I'm looking, I know we have a couple more public comments. I'm hoping that the commenters will maybe tell us, you know, line item number, blah, blah, blah. Here's what the board said. This is how I think the board should restate it. Because it seems like we're getting a lot of just feedback on, in the future, this is what we should do, which is, once again, great information, but not really the purpose for, I think, what we're doing here today, President.
Well, the last comments weren't quite that way, but okay, it's noted. Let's go ahead.
Our next public comment comes from an individual identified as Daniel Robinson. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank you, board members. I'm Dan Robinson, Dean of the College of Pharmacy at Western University of Health Sciences, and I'd like to address issue 11 and issue 15 regarding CPJE, and something that I would like to see changed in this language. I agree with Danny Martinez that the language that's presented in the staff recommendations really don't take any responsibility for securing exams. And you know, essentially, if you had if you left your back door open and someone kept stealing stuff from you, and they did it year after year, you'd be wise to close your back door. And there's a problem that the board has had with CPJE, that people have used exam questions, and that information has been shared with others. And this is not uncommon in education, and essentially every fraternity in the United States has test banks that they have used. So this is something that I feel as an educator, it's my responsibility to make sure that I provide a safe, fair exam that will not be jeopardized. And so what I really believe needs to happen is that if you had, for example, a test bank of 500 questions, and students and graduates or licensees were asked to answer 100 of those, and those were randomly pulled, then there's really no way for you to share that information. And this is the way NAPLEX is done, and this is the way MPJE are done. They have very large test banks, and they're very secure exams. So the deans in California submitted a letter to the board on May 8th and asked 2 questions, and it really had nothing to do with exam security. It had to do with, what does CPJE offer that MPJE does not? And is there anything that is covered in CPJE that NAPLEX exam wouldn't also cover? Understanding that California law questions can be provided to MPJE to make it specific for every state, as it's done in 49 other jurisdictions.
Excuse me for a minute. So do you have a suggestion as to changing the language here?
Yes, if you could change the language to say that the board will study the justification for continuing to use CPJE and consider any advantages that might be associated with, consider CPJE and consider advantages of moving toward an MPJE exam.
Okay, see, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, if anybody has, suggestions on changing a response, that'd be great. As far as discussing the issues, that's not really what this is for. So, but thank you. Appreciate that. Was there something else you wanted to change?
So Dean Robinson, it seems like you would be focusing on that last paragraph of our response, that you think we should expand upon, what we're looking to do in the future beyond legislation, administration, academic institutions, to define dishonesty, consider developing reporting mechanisms. So you think that we should add in there something about also evaluating the use of the MPJE?
Absolutely, that is great.
Okay,
I thought that was in the future agenda, isn't it, Greg?
What we're doing now,
it is in the future agenda for the licensing committee.
It is.
We have put it on hold because we're waiting for a response on a, I can't remember the acronym of the group who's doing the evaluation of our current test, but we're having our current CPJE evaluated, which I think it's referenced in this statement.
Yeah.
But that is for a future discussion, but it's not specifically brought up in this answer.
Yeah. Okay.
So sorry, this is Anne. So at the end of the first paragraph, the board talks about, as a precursor to the evaluation, the board entered into a contract with OPES to conduct an independent assessment of the pharmacist licensure exam. The board looks forward to the results of the assessment to determine if changes are appropriate to the pharmacist licensure exam used to assess for minimum competence prior to issuance of a pharmacist license.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. So,
It
is-
seems like, Dean, the only thing you would want to add then to that sentence, I'm glad she picked it up, because I knew it was in
Right.
there, I just couldn't find it as I was flipping through. It sounds like you would like for us to specifically call out MPJE, which is actually called out a couple sentences prior. It says the board does not believe the recent subversion of CPJE should result in a transition to MPJE, but maybe you want us to specifically call out that in this sentence?
Call out that part of your evaluation will be to consider MPJE.
Okay. The board looks forward to the results of the assessment to determine if changes are appropriate in pharmacy licensure exam used to assess blah, 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 such as MPJE or something like that would be what you would like.
Thank you, yes.
is that correct? Okay.
I do have a comment on issue 15.
Yes, that's fine. Please go ahead.
Yes, on standard of care, I do want to compliment the board and the staff for the recommendations, recognizing that it is time that we considered a standard of care model for pharmacy practice in California. My only concern is there are a couple references to over the next few years. For example, the staff recommendation bolded text says steps it might take over the next few years to move toward that model. I recognize this is a very difficult process and there's a lot of statutory change that would have to take place. But there are many people who would be willing to work with staff members of the board to begin to consider what would that language look like if we were to move forward. So it's a long process, but if we wait a few years to move toward that model, that we'll lose a lot of valuable time. So I would just, if there's some way we could say that we will begin evaluating that right away, or we'll work with partners to start to explore language that would move us toward a standard of care model.
Okay, thank you. And did you have comments on other items too?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go on to the next.
Our next public comment comes from Paige Talley. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I will be brief. I'm only going to address issue number 1. And that has to do, I disagree with the staff recommendations of not adding another element, practice setting to the board. I agree with CPHA, but we'll take it one step further, that a compounding pharmacist should be on the board. But I contend, and so does CCAP, because that's who I'm representing, that you should have a sterile compound, independent sterile compounding pharmacist representing a pharmacy on the board. And I say that because they always, almost always, also do non-sterile compounding. And they have, I know long-term care and hospitals do sterile compounding, but it's frequently quite different than the independent pharmacist. And I just think it's important when we're talking about patient safety and the board responding to the public comments from people like me
Okay.
and my members. And so I'll leave it at that, but I do think that should be changed.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comment.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Would you
Next
like
one.
me to continue?
Yes, please.
Our next public comment comes from Joe Grassella. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Reasons for having a compounding pharmacist on the board. Compounding pharmacist.
Wait, Joe, wait a minute. Again, what we're asking for is comments as to
Issue number
any
2.
changes that are requested to be made to our response to the issues.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
Not for justification of things that, for going forward. So anyway, is there something that you would like us to change in
Yes,
the
the
wording?
suggestion I would like to do is to have an experienced compounding pharmacist on the board. And also, why is there any harm of having an experienced compounding pharmacist on the board? And why did you come to this conclusion, considering there's so much information? All the topics, or many of the topics, are about compounding. The FDA recognized the FDA 503, 503B. And why wouldn't we want to have one?
Well, we're not saying that. All we're saying in our last sentence here, the board should remain mindful whenever it engages in formal decision-making. It may appear to serve the economic interests of licensed population on the board in order to consider having an additional, specialist. We're not saying that specialist has to be anything in particular, but that we would consider additional specialists.
From what I read there, it actually says that they do not recommend having a compounding pharmacist on the board. Am I wrong? I think I can read it. I don't have the time to read it, but it was.
I don't see it saying that.
I believe that you may be talking about two of the different issues. I believe that the issue that Mr. Grisella is referring to is, I believe it's issue number 3.
Okay, because he was talking about issue.
I'm sorry,
issue.
Yeah, I believe it's speaking to issue number 2, and I think in the board's response, we have detailed out some of the expertise that the board already has significant access to, specific to compounding, including the USP.
Right.
So that's where it says that they don't recommend.
Go ahead, Joe.
That's where it says they don't recommend having a compounding pharmacist on the board. But they're talking about expertise on the outside. That's right. But on the board, you really don't have anybody who has experience from compounding from bulk active ingredients. I think Maria's good. She understands USP and is a hospital pharmacist. But what we're talking about is compounding from bulk active ingredients. And all these discussions we have, I think someone should be on the board should know about this. And my guess is that,
can I say that in issue number 2, it says amending law to require at least one of the professional members to be a compounding pharmacist may provide new meaningful experience in board decision-making?
Yes, I agree. But
we're not saying we don't want one.
Doesn't it say at the bottom, the last line, the board says we do not recommend this? And can you bring that up?
So I can't bring it up because I don't control the slides, but I believe that the statement that you are referring to, and it's hard to read just the sentence because it lacks the full context of all of the other information provided, but it does say with that understanding, and again, it talks about the regulation of compounding by both federal and state law, as well as the USP. It says with that understanding, the board does not believe additional professional perspectives are necessary.
Okay, that is what I'm trying to say. I'm suggesting we have somebody.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next.
At this time, Mr. President, we do not have any additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
Feature has been closed.
So, Greg, it seems around compounding, even though a couple people pointed to number 1, it seems like compounding probably is really more addressed in number 2.
Issue number 2, you're absolutely right.
And whether we want to keep that very last sentence that Ann just said, with the understanding the board does not believe additional professional perspectives are necessary, perhaps we just strike that sentence. so that we're not making that statement. And or if others believe we should take a step further, do we actually want to say that we should investigate or discuss, adding a additional, a compounding or cell compounding pharmacist? I don't know how others feel.
Hi, this is Song. I think it would be, I kind of support, having compounding is such a complicated issue. I think we can at least maybe strike down that sentence or add maybe a sentence saying that we can have a discussion or something about it with the legislators.
Well, I mean, I don't think we have a discussion. I think we have wouldn't it song be that internally we first kind of, I don't know if this is, I don't know how we would do it, if it's, we go to, if it's enforcement or if we bring it to the full board, but probably the board needs to discuss it first if we want to go that route. I mean, the other part of it is in, that one paragraph we do point to, we do have some experts that on staff, and then we have other people that we've reached to outside of, California and even our board. So, there's like 1,000 different ways this could go. So I don't really want to pin us down that we're going to do it, but I think maybe either we for sure strike the sentence or we say something to the effect that we will, review it or consider it or something.
Okay, so now would be the time to make a motion if you choose to do so.
Okay, well, I'm going to make I'm going to start conservative, and I'm just going to make the motion that we strike the last sentence. We strike with that understanding the board does not believe additional professional perspectives are necessary. I'm going to make the motion that we strike that, and I'd be open to amendments to that motion if someone thinks we should, add to that, like that we are going to investigate it. But I think in the least we need to strike that sentence.
Okay, so that's your motion. That is your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I can second the motion just to strike down.
Okay. All right, do we have, I'm going to call for member comments on it, actually. So, member comments regarding that motion. I'll start with Maria Serpa.
I have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler. Do you have any comments regarding the motion?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Jig Patel.
No comments, President Lippy.
Thank you. Jason Weiss.
No comments, President Lippy. Thank you.
Thank you. Albert Wong.
No, thank you. Great.
Thank you. Shirley Kim.
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Brooks. Ryan, are you still with us? Uh-oh, just a minute. Okay, Ryan has left us. Okay, okay. So we have no more comments from the members. So now it's time for a public comment on this motion. Moderator, would you please open the lines?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon located in the lower right portion of your screen and type "I would like to make a public comment." No other means or submissions will be addressed. Again, strictly "I would like to make a public comment." With that, our first individual we have identified is Daniel Martinez. Your microphone has been unmuted.
This is Daniel Martinez from CPHA. We support this motion, and we'd like to thank Debbie and Sung for putting forward the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Are there others?
Yes, our next public comment comes from Paige Talley. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank you, moderator. Yes, I have two comments. One is I should have made my comments earlier on issue number 2, and I agree with the motion.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you.
Okay, moderator.
At this time, we have no additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
Feature has been closed.
Okay, it's now time to vote on the motion, so I'll start with Debbie Veal.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Maria Serpa,
Yes.
thank you. Cheryl Butler, Cheryl, you unmuted? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Do you vote yes or no?
Yes, my vote is yes.
Thank you. Jig Patel,
Yes.
thank you. Jason Weiss?
Abstain.
Yes.
Abstain.
Okay. No, I understand. Yes, you abstain, and I understand why. Okay, Albert Wong,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, Sung Oh,
Yes.
thank you. Shirley Kim,
Yes.
thank you. And I vote yes. Motion passes. Okay, are there any other motions related to any of these items, members?
Greg, so this is Debbie. I have one other, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to word it. This is going to be for item number 11, and I'm looking at the board response, and I'm focused on the last sentence of our first paragraph. So I'm looking at changing that sentence, which currently reads, the board looks forward to the results of the assessment to determine if changes are appropriate to the pharmacist licensure exam used to assess for the minimum competence prior to issuance of a pharmacist license. So I'm thinking we need to change that slightly to say something to the effect of the board looks forward to the results of the assessment to complete.
Before you go further, which paragraph are you in item 11?
Okay, so once again, I'm in the draft board response.
Yes,
I'm in the first paragraph.
okay.
I am on the last sentence.
Last sentence, okay.
The
I see
sentence
it.
currently says the board looks forward to the results of the assessment to determine if changes are appropriate. So it's in that I want to kind of remodel that kind of middle of that sentence to say something to the effect of we look forward to the results of the assessment in order to evaluate if changes are necessary or probably appropriate, if changes are appropriate, so to the pharmacist licensure exam, including review, including consideration of including consideration of the MPJE, since that was specifically called out in the staff recommendation, as a way to assess for minimum competence prior to issuance of pharmacist license. So I'm just kind of I'm kind of trying to say, instead of it's just that one thing that's going to determine if a change is necessary, that it's that one, getting that, and this is really, I think this is what the licensing committee intends to happen. Once we get that information from the Office of Professional Exam Services, we're going to take that and then really look at the whole CPJE and determine, is CPJE right? Is MPJE an option? So I think it kind of opens up the whole discussion. It's not just that's going to determine it. I think that's the last piece we need to have it to in order so we can have the discussion.
Okay, so your motion basically is to change it to evaluate it if changes are appropriate, including consideration of the MPJE or as a way to assess for minimum competency.
Yeah, to use the results of the assessment to determine, along with, that's what I'm trying to think, along with what, but along with, other, to use the assessment to determine if changes, I just don't want that assessment. That's not the only thing that's going to determine if we're going to move. I think it's that, and then we have to have a complete discussion. But yes, I think you know where I'm going.
Okay, so you need to put that into a motion then.
Well, so that's my motion.
Debbie,
Yeah.
may I offer what I think maybe might facilitate a little bit?
Yes,
I might
please.
suggest that, so the pharmacist license exam goes beyond just the CPJE. It's the NAPLEX and the CPJE. So I might suggest that perhaps we include at the end of the sentence, including consideration of a transition to the MPJE if determined appropriate, or something along those lines.
That would be a good suggestion.
And I would second that.
Okay.
So it'll
And we
be
have
something
a-
like the board looks forward to the results of the assessment to help determine if changes are appropriate to the pharmacist licensure exam used to assess for minimum competency prior to issuance of the pharmacist license, including a possible transition to MPJE. Is that okay, Ann?
Sorry, it
And
took me a minute to get to. I think that would capture and convey to the legislature that is one of the items that you all are considering.
okay.
Thank
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have other board member comments? Anybody? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to open up for public comment on that motion. Moderator, please open the lines.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon located in the lower right portion of your screen and type "I would like to make a public comment." I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have received no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please do.
Feature has been closed.
Okay, it's time to vote. So I will start with Sung O.
Yes.
Okay. Next is Shirley Kim.
Yes.
Thank you. Albert Wong.
Yes.
Thank you. Jason Weiss. Oh, you can't respond.
Abstain.
Right. Okay. Jig Patel.
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler. Cheryl, are you unmuted? Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
Yes.
Thank you. And Debbie Veal, I know what you are, but go ahead.
I'll
please.
officially make it a yes.
Thank you. Okay, and I vote yes. So, and Ryan's not with us now. So, motion passes. Thank you. Do members have any more comments related to any other issues? Okay, hearing none. At this point, let's see. Why don't we take a 10-minute break before we go on to the rest of it? Moderator, we're going on a 10-minute break.
Greg, do we need to vote for the whole thing, or because the way you did it, we're done?
Yeah, we're done. So anyway, let's take the break and then come back and I'll answer your question. Okay,
This is the moderator. Are you waiting to be back at 10:26?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a roll call, make sure everybody's here. Debbie Veal,
Here.
thank you. Maria Serpa,
Here.
thank you. Cheryl Butler,
Here.
thank you. Jig Patel. Jig, are you back?
Here.
Thank you. Jason Weiss,
Here.
thank you. Albert Wong,
Here.
thank you. Sung Oh,
I'm here.
thank you. Shirley Kim, do we have you for a few more minutes? Shirley Kim? Okay, I think she's dropped off. Okay, council has advised that we need to do a formal approval on the response document. So would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the document as amended.
I
can second that.
second.
Okay, Debbie made the motion. Who's the second? Cheryl?
Yes, I second.
Thank you. Okay, is there any discussion at this point by members? Okay, we need to open the lines for public comment on the motion to approve the issue document as amended.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A feature for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please submit "I would like to make a public comment." All other requests will not be addressed at this time. I will pause a moment to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have received no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
Feature has been closed.
Okay, time to vote. Debbie Veal.
Yes.
Thank you. Maria Serpa.
Yes.
Thank you. Cheryl Butler.
Yes.
Thank you. Jig Patel.
Yes.
Thank you. Jason Weiss. I know you're going to abstain, right?
Abstain.
Thank you. And Albert Wong.
Yes.
Thank you. Sung Oh.
Yes.
Thank you. Did Shirley Kim come back for a minute? No. Okay. I vote yes. Motion passes. Okay, next. At this point, I'd like to determine your preferences, members, for proceeding through the remainder of the open session items. The two remaining open session items are discussion and consideration of waivers that have been extended to the extent of my authority, and discussion and consideration of policies granting the president discretion to approve and extend waivers, mainly to consider any changes to the current delegation. I will take a roll call to determine which of the two remaining sections you would like to address first. The reason for this is if you would like to change the current delegation to provide the presidential authority to extend the waivers for an additional time period, you will not need to consider extending these waivers that are listed on the agenda. I personally don't have a preference. I'm fine with the current delegated authority. And if you would like to extend it, I will accept that. I'd like to explain that when I do approve waivers, they have been first thoroughly vetted by staff which includes inspectors who are licensed pharmacists. I will now take the roll call. Actually, I'll take the roll call, and please answer if you would like to first address the delegated authority, or if you would first like to address the waivers. Debbie Veal?
I would like to first address the delegated authority, and I would actually like to make a motion that we provide the president authority to grant waivers through August 31st, 2021, as is deemed appropriate by the president and the executive officer, and based on the research that's conducted.
Greg, I'm so sorry. I have to step away for a little bit, so I'll be back in like 10 minutes. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Well, let me see if we have a quorum. 2, 4. Yeah, we do. Okay. All right. Do we have a second to Debbie's motion? Okay, not hearing any. Maria Serpa, which one would you like to address first?
I would like to address the authority of the president.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Cheryl Butler, which would you like to address first? The waiver or the authority?
The authority is fine.
Okay. Jig Patel, which would you like to address first?
I would like to address the authority, please.
Okay. Jason Weiss?
No preference, President Lippy.
Okay. Albert Wong?
The authority.
Okay, thank you. And Sung is out, so looks like we addressed the authority first. Okay. Now, given the preference to discuss the delegated authority, we do have a motion on the floor, but we didn't have a second. So let me ask for discussion. And instead of going through roll call, I'm just going to ask if anybody has any discussion they would like to make at this point on this item. If you did not want to second the first motion, does somebody have a different motion?
You know, Greg, can I just be, and that's fine. If I was just trying to make it, nice and easy. But, kind of flipping through the list on agenda item 4, the grand majority of them, the recommendation by staff is to, grant the authority to you through August 31st. There's a couple that are less, and that's why I put in the provision that, or sooner as, at your discretion. But it seems like, the most common date is either May 31st. There is, 1 or 2 that are March, but it seems like the most common dates are May 31st or August 31st. And I just don't see you taking advantage of this situation or the staff being over liberal. So I still think giving you the authority through August 31st is, with, or until emergency declaration is lifted, and, with discretion, because I know you do a lot of research before you do these things. So it's not that everything has to go to August 31st, but that you'd have the ability through August 31st. So I'm just clarifying why I made that motion. I know nobody seconded it, but that's my thought, and I'll stop talking now.
Okay.
This is Maria. I just wanted some more specifics. And as I currently understand it, President Lippy, you have the authority to address a waiver for 90 days and then renew it twice for additional 90 days each. That would be a total of 9 months. Is that where we currently stand?
That's correct. And these waivers that are on the list right now are ones where my maximum has been reached.
So yeah, I think that I do agree with the extension process, but it just is kind of confusing to me as what you would do if there was a new waiver. Would the new waiver go through May or August, or would the new waiver be 90 days, 90 days, 90 days, then May or August? That's the part, is just the coordination of that.
Got it. Well, I think as it stands now, the new ones would be, the 90, 90, 90. But if somebody wants to change that, then they can change that and just make it all to August or whatever.
I like the 90, 90, 90.
Okay, but do you want to extend when after those that have already reached the 90, once they reach it, if we haven't yet gotten to August 31st, do you want to give the authority to go to August 31st or to the end of the crisis, whichever comes first?
I like the until the emergency declaration is lifted. When that was added, that definitely sound better to me. I mean, we are meeting almost, it seems almost every month. So so I personally like the 90, and if you need you have the 90 and then you automatically have 2 more 90s. So I don't understand why we would need to change anything.
Well, what we're addressing now is, like I said, if you want to go through all the ones that are on the list now, because I've already reached the 90-90 on those.
I see.
So that's why.
That's why Debbie is saying August 30th.
Correct. Correct.
At the ones that we're looking at right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, I think what we're talking though about is the authority, not the ones we're looking at right now. So it's the granting the authority, not at any specific waiver.
Right.
And so the only thing is if the board does want to, nitpick the date, whether it's the end of the emergency declaration, whether it's May 31st or August 31st, that if you choose the first, which is the end of the declaration, what we had talked about in the past, that we give, 30 days after the end of the declaration, because we don't want to be on that day. Pharmacies cannot change operations on a dime.
Right. So do we want to do to August 31st or the end of the declaration, whichever comes first, or 30 days after the end of the declaration, whichever comes first? Is that something you would like to do? Maria?
I thought you were asking the others.
No, well, I'm asking you.
That seems feasible. So but I'm still just a little confused about is this going to supersede the 90, 90, 90? And now everything going forward is now under this new rule.
Okay, let's ask Debbie. It's Debbie's motion. So Debbie, what did you have in mind on this?
Well, so my thought was, I don't want to kind of micromanage it. I kind of want to make it as flexible as possible so that you could work with the staff and determine, what the best solution is. Because I don't know, there might be some that, maybe 90, 90, 90 is right, and there might be others that it's 60.
Well,
60.
Yeah, there'll be some, you're right, there'll be some that I'll only, that I would only grant for 30 or 60 days, depending upon what the issue is.
So I guess that's why I said, August 31st or the, declared declaration, and, at the discretion of the board president based on the research and the advice from staff. So, I mean, I'm trying to make it as flexible as possible. So,
Okay.
in some cases it would be 90, 90, 90. In some cases it'd be 30, 30, 30. In some cases, whatever.
Got it. But the maximum is August 3rd. So on a new waiver, it would be on the discretion of the president not to exceed August 31st or the end of the declaration, or 30 days beyond the end of the declaration.
Of the declared emergency, right?
Okay. Maria, are you able to second that one?
Yes, I second Debbie's motion.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from members regarding this?
I apologize. Go ahead.
What? No, go. Are there any other member questions about this or comments?
I just want to have an understanding of, so any new waivers that come up, then you're not gonna just automatically go to August 31st.
No.
You're gonna look at that waiver and you can do a 90-day waiver, and we will be aware of whatever those waivers are, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so are there?
I apologize.
Like in some cases, it might be 60 days. It depends what, it's
I
a
apologize.
lot depends on the recommendation of the inspectors. Go ahead, Sung.
Could you repeat the motion? Sorry.
Okay. The motion is to grant authority to the president to use discretion on waivers, but that there will be a maximum authority to August 31st or 30 days beyond the end of the declaration. And that's it.
Thank you.
Do you understand it? Okay. All right. So that being understood, are there any other member comments? Okay. Let's open up for public comment. Moderator?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A feature for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please submit. I would like to make a public comment. All requests will be addressed in the order they are received. We do have an individual identified as Sarah Huschel. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Good morning. This is Sarah Huckle with the University of California, Office of the President. Just wanted to thank the board for their support in granting the waivers thus far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have an individual identified as Paige Talley. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank you, moderator. I just wanted to make sure, President Lippy, that the motion included or 30 days after the emergency is lifted. Is that true?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have John Gray. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Hi, this is John Gray. I'm a registered pharmacist with Kaiser Permanente. Just wanted to express that we're supportive of the direction that the board is taking by extending the president's authority to extend waivers up until August 31st of 2021. Just recognizing that, on the whole, when we reviewed the list of specific waivers in agenda item number 4, we felt that, generally speaking, the either March 31st or August 31st recommendation from staff seemed pretty appropriate in those cases. So we would, respectfully suggest that the board president, to the extent possible, follow or consider those staff recommendations. Additionally, we're very supportive of the addition of the 30 days after the end of public health emergency to allow pharmacies the time to unwind any operational changes that they made as a result of the waivers. And then finally, just recognizing that it's not agendized for this meeting, but we would encourage the board to consider engaging in a future discussion of certain waiver flexibilities that should be considered to be made permanent, and any statutory or regulatory changes that would be necessary to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we have no additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
This feature has been closed.
Okay, it's time to vote. So Debbie Veal,
Yes.
thank you. Maria Serpa,
Yes.
thank you. Cheryl Butler,
Yes.
thank you. Jig Patel,
Yes.
thank you. Jason Weiss,
Yes.
thank you. Albert Wong,
Yes.
thank you. And Sung Oh,
Yes.
thank you. And I'm a yes, motion passes. Okay. Now that that motion has passed, we do not need to move on to the other item.
Actually,
because-
President Lippy, this is Eileen. I think because we put those on the agenda, we should open it up for public comment.
Good point. Good point.
They would have had a chance to talk with the board about that, and just asking whether anyone has public comment on the specific waivers listed in light of the fact that that's now been delegated to the president.
Okay. Let's do that. Let's open up for public comment on that.
This is the moderator. I have opened public comment. This is for, I believe, agenda item number 4 and the items listed on the agenda. If you would like to make a public comment in response to those, please submit. I would like to make a public comment. First up, we have an individual identified as Daniel Martinez. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Thank you. Danny Martinez with CPHA. The board members should have received a letter that we submitted regarding the waiver on the ratio of intern pharmacists. We, first off, are supportive of the continuation of that waiver. We also, in our letter, would like to request that the ratio actually be increased to 4-to-1. And as we explained in our letter, with the rollout of the COVID vaccine as early as from today to anywhere early next week, we've been hearing very consistent rumors, I'll say at this point, that there's not enough folks, actual vaccinators available. And so we believe that by upping the intern pharmacist ratio to 4-to-1 would provide some more opportunity for that, for intern pharmacists to be able to vaccinate for COVID in this first phase and the subsequent phases after that. So I just wanted to point that out and ask if the board would be willing to amend that waiver to include 4.
Danny, would you be willing to accept as a condition to that higher ratio that the supervising pharmacist is working solely on immunizations as opposed to also performing dispensing and other clinical services?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have an individual identified as Sarah Huckle. Your microphone has been unmuted.
Hello, Sarah Huckle again for University of California, Office of the President. I'd like to speak in support of continuing the waiver for the duty to consult, item number C. It's been very helpful for our student health centers. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we have no additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
Feature has been closed.
Thank you. Okay. Give me a minute.
President Lippy, this is
Okay.
Ann.
Yes.
I might suggest that you can take the comments that you've just received as when you are exercising your your revised delegated authority, unless members would like to give you specific direction.
Yes, that's what I intend to do. So, thank you. Okay. Next is, I would like to thank the members of the public who observed or participated in the meeting today. The board will now be proceeding to closed session. As indicated on the agenda, the board will convene in closed session to deliberate on disciplinary and other matters. The board will reconvene in open session, but only to adjourn the meeting in open session. And that portion of the meeting will not be broadcast due to technological limitations. No board business will be conducted. Thank you all for participating today. We will be terminating the WebEx now. Members, make sure you have the call-in number for the closed session. If not, please contact Debbie Damon. Thank you all. And members, I'll talk to you in a few minutes. Thank you. Bye.
This is the moderator. I will be now closing this session.